folks. Welcome back to the iHealth channel, iHealth Radio, the NBC network, with your host, Hurricane H. Welcome back to another Hurricane H show today. Today's guest is Luke Mickelson, a leader with Sleep in Heavenly Peace, a non-profit now active in over 47 states and several countries dedicated to making sure no child sleeps on the floor. Big stuff. Through service, leadership, and community impact, John Luke is helping inspire everyday people to step up and make a real difference. Luke, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Hurricane, thanks for having me, my man.
My pleasure. This is amazing the work you do, man. I'm
Oh,
just kind of listening to it, it's
wow.
powerful stuff. So today we're gonna deep dive with you. You are the founder of this whole,
That's correct. Yeah,
group,
yeah.
and it's just when you hear nonprofit, when you hear
Mhm.
47 states, multiple countries. It's no small change. This is big stuff. But you know what? I'm sure it started with an idea,
Oh,
with
sure.
or a solution to a problem that you probably came across in your life, and then you wanted to make a difference. So guide us through that whole story, like where it all began.
Yeah,
How
sure.
did you even come up with this? And the name is awesome too.
Yeah.
But let's go start with from the scratch here, from where
Well,
it all began.
there's a funny story behind the name too, but yeah, this like maybe unlike other nonprofits, this nonprofit actually started not because of a need that we knew. The I live in a small town in called Kimberly, Idaho. In this small town, about 4,000 people. The benefits of living in a small town is the same reason it's complicated and whatnot, because you know everybody and they know you, you know. And so when you know everybody's business and they know your business, you kind of instantly have to make this bond, right? But the beauty about that is, when you're making bonds with people and have friends and you know everybody, you want to support everybody. That's what you just did in small towns, right? Someone's pulled off the side of the road, you're going to pull over, make sure they're okay. I was a farm kid, so working in the fields, if something broke down, you called your friends to come help, or you got called, or if there was nobody, guess what? You're just gonna have to figure it out, right? So some of these things that I grew up in, this small town I grew up in, really played a role, obviously, in my character growth. Now, when we're old, we can look back and see that how that changed our lives and how that, maybe the reasons why we ended up here talking to each other. But you don't recognize at the time. It was a small town, it was a small school. There was only about 300 kids from ninth grade to senior, so 9 through 12. And one of the benefits, I don't, well, I guess you'd call it a benefit of being in a small town, a small school. If you could pick up a ball, Hurricane, and throw it in any direction with accuracy, you're going to play sports, whether you like it or not. I remember I really didn't want to run track, and my coach says, "No, no, you don't have a choice, Luke. You're running track." Which was good, right? Kind of you did things not necessarily for yourself, right? Because you were a team player, and I loved the team concept. I loved competition, and this all played a big role later on in my life. When I got out of high school and went to college, I served a mission actually for my church, and that played a big role. I learned the joy of service. In fact, my mission president gave me some great advice. He said, "Luke, when you go back home and you get into your career, if you never want to work a day of your life, just look at your career and your job as a way of serving others. And you'll never work a day in your life." And I love that. And that's so true. You served my mission, so I served people. I came home, got a job in a local outside sales position, and I looked at it as, how can I help others, right? And it brought a lot more satisfaction to the job. Well, I moved back to my own hometown, my little small town. So, because I loved growing up there, I wanted my kids to grow up there. And again, when you're from a small town, you have any sort of sports experience. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to coach. So I coached a lot of
Sure.
sports, a lot of football, a lot of whatnot. And then I served in my church in a position called a young men's president, which was kind of like a youth pastor, if you will, although I don't consider myself a youth pastor. But I got to be with the boys, and we got to do a lot of spiritual activities, but also, regular activities during the week, which was basically the Boy Scouts. Um, and this is important in our story because, at the time in this, is 2012. I was 35 years old-ish. And, Hurricane, I, I don't know if everybody goes through this. I know I did, right? And people call it a midlife crisis. I don't know if you call it a crisis. Well, there was a lot of crises going on. Let's just say that, I'd grown up my whole life measuring my success based on, how much money I made, what kind of toys did I have in the garage, what kind of car I drove. And I think the reason why that was is because I grew up in a single parent home, five kids, mom worked three jobs, and talk about pounded it in your head that you better get an education, you better make some good money so you're not poor like we are, and you can blah blah blah. I get it. I really did. And but when you hit this stride, or you hit this time in life, whatever time it is, I guess, I had a good job and I was making good money, and I had a family and I was coaching and I was doing service. And I mean, on paper, I had nothing to complain about. And it made it even worse because I felt inside I was missing something. There was just something missing. Like I didn't know how to measure success in life anymore, right? But I didn't care how much money I made. I really didn't, right? Now what do you do? What is important? Which when you start asking yourself these tough questions and you don't get answers for them, boy, that's frustrating. I came into it. What do I believe? I don't even know if I believe this, where I'm going after I die. All these things started coming up, and they came up for a couple of years. I fought it. Well, I think because I was in this position, I was in this kind of internal turmoil. No one knew what was going on. I just kind of quietly suffered, trying to find my way through. Well, in this time, I was sitting in a meeting. Excuse me. I was sitting in a meeting in my church group, and one of the leaders got up and started talking about. And in this meeting, we often talked about, events that were going on in the community, people that we were helping, and so forth. Well, one of the leaders got up and she started talking about this family. Well, it kind of caught my ear because they lived in a part of town I didn't even know existed. And I've been riding my bike around this place since I've been five. So I remember thinking, where is this place at? And then she started talking about when she visited the home, the things that the family needed. The mom was a local school bus driver, and dad kind of suffered from mental health issues. And so they just struggled financially, right? And they had a couple of kids. And the leader said, yeah, they need rides to school, they need food, the kids don't have any beds, we need to get them some coats and stuff like that. And I said, whoa, 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 wait a minute. Did you just say the kids they don't have any beds? Like they have mattresses, right? And she said, no, they're sleeping on the floor with blankets and pillows. And I don't know, that just hit me weird. I'd never heard of that before. I mean, I've heard of kids sleeping on the floor, but to think about that day in and day out. And I thought of my own kids. What would that be like? You know, um, then I got kind of excited because I thought, as a leader over teenage kids, especially teenage boys, to find an activity that they're going to enjoy that doesn't involve a screen or a computer or a phone nowadays is not an easy task, right? And so I thought, oh, here's a great opportunity that I can get an Xbox controller out of these boys' hands and put a drill in it, and we'll teach them something. I'd never built furniture before in my life, but hey, I wasn't a stranger to tools. I was a farm kid from Idaho. I could figure it out. And so after that meeting, I went home and grabbed my tape measure and my pen and paper and went down to my daughter's bedroom, and she had a bunk bed. So I started measuring this bunk bed and coming up with a plan that I could buy material, um, assemble this bed very simply because A, I've never built one, and B, neither of these teenage boys. So so I came up with a good design. Well, then the boys came over, right? They come over on Wednesday nights typically, but because this project was so important and they loved it, they came over Wednesday, Thursday, Friday till the project was done, till we finished building this bunk bed. Hurricane, I wanted these kids to know the joy of service. I wanted them to know the feelings the fulfillment you get when you serve others. I always say true joy comes when you stop looking at yourself and you see how you can help someone else out, right? Your problems don't go away. Of course they don't. But you can now see them. It puts you in a different perspective, right? You can actually see this monster, this problem that's been tucked in the closet, and you blew it up because you didn't face it, you didn't look at it in a good perspective. But now you do. It's like opening the closet door and realizing this monster is nothing but a kitty, and now you can deal with it. And I think that's what service does for us. And I wanted the boys to feel that. Let alone I wanted them to feel the benefits and appreciate the things they had, like a bed. So the time came to deliver this bed. Well, it kind of got out in the community of what we were doing, and people loved it. People thought it was a great idea. And the next thing you know, 20, 30 people showed up to my house to go deliver a bed to this two-bedroom apartment. I said,
Ooh.
okay, wait a minute. This ain't gonna work, guys. Um, so me and a bunch of people stayed back in my house, helped me clean my garage up because it was a mess. I wanted the boys to go and experience it, and they did. Well, the next day at church, they just talked about how amazing it was. How appreciative the parents were, how happy the kids were to finally have a bed to sleep on. I mean, think about that, right? And these young Boy Scouts got to see that. So, mission accomplished. The boys had a great service activity. They had learned something. We taught them how to use tools. The family got supplied. These kids are now off the floor. And child bedlessness, although not a real word, it's a real problem, but it was finished in this house. Well, it was awesome, and I'll be honest, I was a little jealous. I didn't get to go on this delivery, like anybody, I think. But I was grateful for the boys. Well, the next week came around, and it's funny how life just kind of creeps itself back in, right? You get back in the same rut, and I could feel it coming. I knew it was coming. And it was almost worse now because I just had this amazing experience with these kids and building this bed, and now it's over, and I'm falling back down into this cloud or this rut. Well, I was sitting on the couch with my kids. We were watching Big Bang Theory. This is 2012, and a commercial came on. And this was just after Thanksgiving, so Christmas was on everybody's mind, especially my kids. And every parent goes through this. When a kid sees a commercial or sees something, right? As a parent, here it comes, right? They're gonna ask, they're kids, of course they're gonna ask for it. And sure enough, hey dad, can we get this Xbox or this game or whatever? It just hit me. Here I am struggling on the couch to stay afloat, to stay positive. No matter how much pep talking I gave myself, I just couldn't get out of it. And then I just did this awesome event with the Boy Scouts, and they learned a lot. And I wanted my kids to learn that because now they want an Xbox, and we already have an Xbox, and they don't have a bed, but my kids have a bed. They should. I mean, this big, this big hurricane of emotion and thoughts going through my brain, right? And the next thing I knew, I stood up, didn't say a word, just stood up almost out of sheer instinct and started walking to the garage door. And my kid said, Dad, where are you going? The program's on. I said, you know what? I got extra wood. I'm going to build another bunk bed, and you're going to come and help me. And so that's what we did. We went out in the garage and we had a great time. I got pictures of my daughter in her pink tutu hammering away, and my son in his favorite Boise State sweatshirt, drilling. And we had a great time. And again, I got off the couch. This tiny moment got me off this couch, not because I knew child bedlessness was real, not because I knew that there was another family that had kids sleeping out there. It was a father that wanted to teach his kids the value and the joy of service and to appreciate the things they have. I think every father would want that, right? But because I got off the couch, right? Because you went out and actually acted on these tiny moments I talk about, right? Well, that's when things start opening up, right? And the funny thing is, the ironic thing is now we finished this bed. It's sitting in my garage. I don't know what to do with it, right? We had solved the problem already. Well, my wife at the time recommended that I put it on buy, sell, trade on one of these Facebook groups, right? And This is 14 years ago. I wasn't a Facebook guy. I didn't even know what that meant, but sure, why not? So we put it on this Facebook buy sell trade. Well, two things happened that really shocked me. The first thing was is I had a lot of people comment on this post, and the post was nothing more than, "Hey, as a family Christmas project, me and my kids have built this bunk bed, and we're trying to find a family that has kids sleeping on the floor because I don't want kids to sleep on the floor when Santa shows up. I just can't bear it. I'm not much of a woodworker type guy, craftsman, but hey, I think it's a sturdy bed." Well, all these people started commenting. People I didn't know, people I knew but hadn't talked to for 20 years, for old high school friends. And then another thing, the second thing that was shocking is they all knew kids that were sleeping on the floor. And worse yet, they knew the conditions. They knew how they got there. They knew they were sleeping on concrete, on pallets, three or four kids to one bed. None of them had a bed of their own. And that was shocking in my own small town that this was going on. Now, I wanted this bed to go to to a child that really needed it. Then they all needed it, but something that I could find that just really resonated and felt like, okay, this is where this special bed that me and my kids built needs to go. Well, I got a phone call, and it was a friend of mine I served a mission with, and she said, "Hey, Luke, have you delivered that bed yet?" I said, "No, no, what's going on?" And she says, "Let me tell you a story. There's a little girl named Haley, and she's 6 years old, and she's never slept on a bed before. She's only slept in the backseat of her mom's car. They were homeless. Well, my friend and her organization helped them get a house for the first time. And I thought, perfect. This is exactly what I'm looking for, right? So we loaded up the bed and headed out to little Haley's house. Well, I don't know about you, but I've seen homelessness before. I've been a part of that, helping people and people transition out in and out and foster care situations. But I've never walked into a situation like that looking at it through the eyes of a 6-year-old. And that puts a different dynamic on it. You walk in, you realize, yeah, there's no couch or TV there, so there's no watching cartoons. There's no chair or kitchen table, so no cereal to eat on. The only thing in the house was a hot plate that had a can of soup on it. You start recognizing these things that us adults don't remember. But this little girl, Haley, was so excited. She had a house, for crying out loud. She didn't know why we were there, but I leaned down. I said, "Haley, why don't you show me show me your bedroom?" And she ran back to this room, and we followed her. Well, you can imagine what this room looked like, right? Holes in the carpet, tears in the wallpaper. There's no closet door, and there's used toys everywhere. But the most shocking thing to me, which I was not ready for, was in the corner of her room was a pile of clothes. And that's where Haley slept. It was like a nest. She'd come home from school, she'd put her PJs on, sleep on her school clothes, and I'm talking shirt for a pillow and pants for a blanket, right? And then the next day she'd put those same clothes on and go to school. I was shocked. I was almost mad, like frustrated. This is going on in my town. Heck no. And then I got excited again because we had brought her first bed, and we started bringing in the pieces and putting it together, and I wanted to watch her. I wanted to see what her reaction was when she realized it was a bed. And sure enough, it was like Christmas morning. I mean, she just erupted, right? She came over and hugged me and hugged my friend, these two strange dudes in her room making all sorts of racket. And then Herkin, she did something I'd never seen before. She went and hugged and kissed the bed. I mean, have you ever seen a kid kiss a bed before? I mean, it's something as trivial and mundane as a bed, and that's how much it meant to her. And I'm sitting there just trying to hold it together. This tough farm kid from Idaho is about to break down. And if that wasn't enough to just rip your heart out, you look up and here's mom, right? And I was raised by a single mom too. There's 6 years of tears pouring down this poor lady's face. And I knew exactly what those tears meant. I'd seen them before. The frustration, the hurt, the worry, the guilt that she felt for not being able to provide for her daughter like she wants to. And right then, Hurricane, I knew the thought came to me, this is way more than just a bed. This is way more than just a good night's sleep. And that's how this whole thing started.
Look, I'm listening to you, and like I'm in shock. Actually, I have to say. Well, first of all, I want to commend you. I want to clap. I want to give you all the kudos in the world for such an initiative. But the story that in the States in current times in the middle, I mean, I would have never thought this is actually happening. I mean, I know there's poverty, I see it, around town and, in New York and in Jersey and in other towns and other states around us and in Florida. Like when I travel, sometimes, you cross some states, you see some of that, but you don't go beyond the level like where you can think that our children today that actually have no beds
Yeah,
to sleep on. And I even worked in government programs in the insurance space, which we've done a lot of work, social work in the communities and things like that. We've done, clothing drives, coat drives, food drives, and all that. But you don't go to the point where you can see where they live and stuff like that. They come out to events and to these locations,
right.
parks, whatever, and they get, there's these little gifts for the holidays and things like that. But I've not seen that. I mean, I've gone to senior homes, which their situation was very bad in terms of like the accommodations, whatever.
Pretty
But
humble.
but 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 yeah, it's humbling when you see that. I mean, you're like we have to be grateful sometimes for what we have, and I think sometimes we take a lot of things for granted. I mean, I tell that to my kids sometimes, like come and see, how other people are, and then you will
Yeah,
realize that what you have is, night and day for a lot of people, and you'll be surprised, but not having a bed that
yeah.
I have not actually even considered as something
Hmm.
that was available to in today's day and
You
age.
know,
And in the states, more more specific. I mean, I can
100%.
see it maybe in parts of the world that are very unfortunate, behind
Right.
schedule in terms of I guess infrastructure. But in the U.S., it is almost something that is like wow. Now, it is a problem around the world, and I love that this little thing that happened with you and this idea that you developed with a bunch of Boy Scouts and your kids. It's funny, by the way. I did have a point in my life where I actually sponsored the charter in State 9 and 4, the Boy Scouts. So I'm familiar with them. We actually never got the troop up. We started, but no, that we didn't get enough people to join, and so we never did it. But I was part of that initiative, and we wanted
Oh,
to do it
cool.
the local community. But so I know the work that they do. It's pretty cool. I
Yeah.
mean, activities and sports, and they can handle themselves in nature. They can handle themselves in a lot of areas.
It's a good program. Yeah.
It is, and it,
Yeah.
it gives them discipline. I mean, it's like the closest you can get to maybe a military training concept or
Sure.
ROTC in high school. I mean, in a more casual format, this will be the
Right.
ideal, to develop skills and character, right? And
Yeah.
so it started from there. And another thing you said is it's funny that you said about the midlife crisis. I think everybody goes through that, and we all have that steep, incline, and you get to a point in life like, wow, I got to do something with my life. I gotta. You start thinking about all this stuff, and also think about the future and all these things, and you want to do, make a difference sometimes in
Yeah.
yourself, your family, and also in the world. So you did that, but really, this idea that you're like, okay, let's do this, and people not having the bed and taking it like even in your own place and building this with your kids and stuff. This is something that's going to be a legacy for life, and it's a beautiful story to share with other people, and I hope that other people can emulate what you've
Yeah.
done in a lot of areas. I mean, maybe not, the beds are there's still a need for that, but there's other areas of need everywhere.
Right.
And
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny. You just this is something that happened like recent. So you and I we talked, in the UAE in Dubai, and a month ago there was the month of Ramadan, so this is the fasting month here, and in Dubai it's a very metropolitan area, so there's a lot of ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, and mixture of class levels in terms of labor versus executive, ownership business. I mean,
Sure.
you can hear all the glamour of Dubai, but there's also the people that are the workers, the laborers that build all this stuff. And one of the organizations here, was doing something about bringing food to these people on a regular basis, day in, day out. I mean, every day at 3 p.m., 5 to 8,000 meals were prepped, by volunteers from the community who came,
Mm,
and put the couple hours to feed these folks that actually were less, fortunate to actually have a full meal or any type of sort. So I admire these types of opportunities where people actually are doing the stuff. So again, I commend you, just like as I was, I commended the guy behind that initiative here. And I think we need more of people of
mm,
your caliber, of your, I guess, vision, of your personal, character to really do more. And of course, there's quite a few people out there doing it, but I don't think there's enough. And I think, every town, any place has, a need. And it's funny because in the States, most people look like, maybe these people don't, this is like not something we're going to see and stuff. But if you live in a metropolitan area in New York or in Jersey, or, and I think all the area, places now more than ever. I mean, you can drive around. You talk about homelessness. I think we have a pandemic across nation. In a lot of towns now, there's a lot more people that are actually homeless, living in tents and in these little, areas of the city or outside of the city. And it is really, you feel hurt about seeing such a thing.
right.
And it's amazing that some people have everything. Sometimes they don't realize that, look behind you, you're going to see quite a bit of distress and people that are actually in need. And sometimes, people waste food. You go to these
Mm,
buffet, food, and people just throw things around, and like, plates are full and they just go in the garbage. And you have people that can't even find, a little meal and a place to sleep,
yeah.
or,
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, like
You know,
the idea you said, a pile of clothes, and then you have to wear them in
yeah.
the morning.
I
Wow.
think the reason why it hit me and hits other people is because a bed is so, for maybe you and I, seems so common. It's like when I first heard about it, I was like, well, of course I got a bed. I mean, everybody's got a bed, right? And
They
and you
assume
don't,
that.
yeah, yeah. And you don't think about that, right? Child bedlessness. I mean, and that's why I'm so grateful for you to have me on. And this is why, because it is such an unknown problem. You don't think about it. No one sees it. I'll give you an example. So these kids, let's just take for a moment, I'll ask your listeners right now, just stop for a second, whatever you're doing, just put it down and listen. Picture yourself. What would it be like to be 6 years old and not have a bed, right? Let's play that out a little bit, right? Number one, you're waking up on the wrong side of the bed, or in this case, the wrong side of whatever, right? So you didn't get a good night's sleep. You're probably sore, right? Then you're supposed to go to school and learn. You're not in that right mindset to do that, right? These kids, their grades suffer, right? So that's never good in adolescence. They have a hard time making good friends or any friends at all. Because guess what? These kids can't have sleepovers, right? They don't have friends come to their house because they don't have a bed or a proper bedroom, right? And so they go to their friend's house all the time. And, not only does little Joey have a bed, he's got frickin' throw pillows. What kind of message do these kids get, mentally? What kind of message do these kids get when they see that, right? And worse yet, when you and I, when we have a bad day, the boss was hard on us, we lost a client, you got in an argument or something like that, and or worse yet, we get the flu, right? You get sick. Tell me, what is the one place on the planet that we all long to crawl into when we're in that condition? It's our bed. We travel all over the country. We sleep in all sorts of nice hotels, whatever. I have still never slept in a bed that I would rather have slept in my own, because it has nothing to do with comfort. It has everything to do with security, and safety and my sanctuary. These kids don't have that. So when you start realizing that and you start thinking, holy cow, these kids this is the experience that they have in their life. When we got done delivering Haley's bed on the way home, I remember thinking, listen, I'm a farm kid from Idaho. I love hunting. I love fishing. I love outdoor sports. I love watching college football on Saturdays. And then guess what? I have for 35 years. And in a split second, I kid you not, none of it mattered anymore. And the reason why is because I thought about my kids and I thought about spending, whatever it was, a couple of hours a night for 3 nights to build that bed to solve that problem for that family. Yeah, that's well worth my time. That's more important than catching a fish. That's more important than watching college football. You know, even though I still enjoy doing those things, it wasn't something I longed for anymore. And when we got home, we didn't say much to each other, me and my buddy. I finally got home and I looked over to him and I said, "You know what? No kid's going to sleep on the floor in my town if I have anything to do with it." Right? Now, what I didn't know is my town was much bigger, meaning there's a lot of kids that are sleeping on the floor. Child bedlessness represents greater than 3% of the total population. So if you're in a town of 100,000 people, on average, there's over 3,000 kids that don't have beds. And I'll give you another crazy statistics. When we started building beds and sharing with the public what we're doing through Facebook and social media, couple things happened. We got a lot of people that wanted to help out. And this is what I found out. We solved child bedlessness, but I also realized that there are millions of people, great people. They want to help out. They just don't know how. And I kind of felt like I was in the same way. I just didn't know how. I didn't know what to do, right? Nothing really resonated with me. Well, and the second thing that happened is we found more kids. More people would tell us about kids that were in need. This list got bigger and bigger and started growing in other towns. And other people wanted to do this, what we were doing in our town. So we put them on as chapters and we became a nonprofit. And now we've trained over 440 chapters in almost every state and in 4 countries. And this summer, we will celebrate our 400,000th bed that we've built. That's how bad this need is. And as you and I speak right now, Hurricane, there are 150,000 kids on our waiting list, which seems like a huge number, which it is. It's a huge number. But we only cover, to put it in perspective for you, we only cover 28% of the United States. So there's still greater than 70% that don't even know we exist. And we're at 150,000 waiting list. So child bedlessness is a major problem. When I found out a long time ago when I was going to be a nonprofit, decided to be a nonprofit, I did what I think anybody else would do. I'd try to find a nonprofit that's providing beds for kids and see how they did it and just kind of mimic it. Well, I found one nonprofit in the entire US, all the way across the country in North Carolina, and that was it. Just one. And then another thing happened is the more I built and the more people found out what I was doing, all of a sudden I started getting calls from Child Protective Services, CASA, foster care agencies that were helping these families and these kids. I was like their favorite guy. And the reason why they told me was because, Luke, providing a bed for a child in this condition is most of the time is the single hardest thing for them to do. It's because there's nobody's providing it, you know, and that is true everywhere. That on average everywhere. And you're right. This is the United States, one of, if not the richest country in the world. And this is that big of there's over 12 and a half million kids that are under the poverty line, under 18, that fit this category. We right now only geographically cover about a third of them, about a fourth of them, really, you know, 30%. And 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 that's how bad this problem is. And that's how, people don't think about it. And people that have kids sleeping on the floor don't talk about it, right? Number one, even agencies don't talk about it because there's no solution. Well, we're changing that. Sleeping on the Peace now, we're the largest bed building charity in the world, mostly because there's not very many, but we build 100,000 beds a year, but we receive far more applications per year. You know, if and we share with people, listen, if you want to learn about Sleep in Emily Peace, if you want to learn about child bedlessness, number one, you can find out in your own communities. Go talk to a school teacher, go talk to a school counselor, talk to a first responder. Say, hey, have you seen kids without beds? You're going to be pretty shocked, right? And if you want to learn more from us, you can go to our website, shpbeds.org, right? And the beauty about our website, Hurricane, is it's not some big national website where you go there and, it's it just no. This problem is not going to be solved by some farm kid from Idaho in your community. This is going to be solved by you. This can be solved by your community. And so when you bring up our website, we show you the closest chapter to you, and you get to see it's their website. You get to see how many kids they've helped, how many kids are on their waiting list, what events they have coming up. You can donate money to them. We're a nonprofit. So, and that money goes to that chapter, right? If you don't have a chapter nearby, you can start one. We put on about 50, 60 chapters a year, right? And better yet, the best part is you can apply for a bed for for anywhere. It may be for your own child, for your neighbor's child, or your sister 6 states over. If a chapter president has accepted that zip code as a deliverable area, they will receive that application and be able to fulfill it, right? But that all starts with us as in humanity, us as in humans helping humans. These little humans we talk about, they're in this situation not because of their choices, right? That's probably one of the reasons why helping children is so amazing. And this particular problem, right? They have no choice. And sometimes it's not even the choice of the parents, right? It's a house fire, it's a loss of job, it's a single mom that grabbed a garbage bag and threw as much stuff in it as she could with the kids and left, you know, as quick as she could. These situations are very real. It's foster care problems where, if they don't have beds, these foster care kids get split up, right? So there's so many things attached to this child bedlessness problem. It's way more than, in fact, I have a book coming out at the end of the year. It's called More Than Just a Bed, because I want people to realize I want them to hear my story because listen, I'm a farm kid from Idaho for crying out loud. I'm nobody special, man. I'm nobody special. I'm a normal Joe. And that means you normal Joes can do the same thing. I teach and talk about tiny moments, and that's where all this started was from a tiny moment. And you're right, we hit this stage in life. Well, I think we have it through all life, but somewhere in this stage of life, we feel a need to change. Maybe we mature, maybe we recognize an issue internally, whatever it is, we want to change. So what do? We focus in on that. I want to change. I spend a lot of time thinking about that and planning that. I read self-help books. I go to therapy. I talk to friends. I do all this because I want to change. My desire to change is big. But we're missing one thing I've learned. It's the second step that's the most critical, and that's the desire to act, right? So we spend so much time building our desire to change and all the things we want to change about ourselves and how amazing it would be. But how much time are we spending on our desire to act on that? I was the same way. I sat for 2 years, Hurricane, trying to pep talk myself up, trying to, you know, want to change and wish I could do this and I can do this and all this stuff and just treading water. But until I heard about a child sleeping on the floor and until I heard my kids and the tiny moment of, you know what, Luke, you can talk about child bedlessness, you can talk about service, you can talk about telling your kids to appreciate the things that they have, or you can get off the couch and just show them. Get off the couch and have them come with you. So my desire to act suddenly became way bigger than my desire to change. And those are the tiny moments, and those actions are what actually transform you. I'm a way different person now. I have a much different perspective. I found a passion that is now a purpose for my life. And I know that is how passion becomes purpose in people's lives, is you've got to find and react, or I should say act on tiny moments. We dismiss them way too easy, don't we? Right? I'm too busy. I don't know how to do that. I don't have the right tools. you know,
Jesus.
I'm whatever the excuse is, we all do it, right? But how much time do we spend on the desire to act? Not very much, right? And that desire to act is really the big stepping stone. And I tell people, listen, you might finally, you might act on something. You might get off the couch and act on something. And guess what? You might not change the world. You might not change, you might change someone's world, right? But that someone might just be you. And that's great. We get ourselves right, then we can help other people. I remember when I was young in a single home, single mom, with 5 kids. Christmas wasn't plentiful, let's just say that, But I remember one Christmas, and this is a tribute to how awesome my community was, or is rather. Um, I went out to the mailbox, and I was young, 13, 14, went out to the mailbox to grab the mail. And in the mailbox was an envelope of cash, $1,500 of cash that my community and members of my community, and we pretty much knew who they were, but they wanted to help the Mickelsons, right? And I remember thinking, here's someone that when they could, they did. So when I can, I will, right? And that's what these little desires to act come from. That's when we practice acting on things, saying yes to those things. It just becomes easier and easier. And then you won't miss you won't miss your chance to find passion and purpose.
Well, look, I'm listening to you, and I'm just, I'm usually talkative, but I had to shut down and shut up for a minute here because listening to you, I mean, you speak with such a passion about this, and you are so proud of this work. And to be honest with you, you should be, but also you're putting great message out there, for this because talk is cheap, right? Some people talk the talk, some other talk and walk, the walk. And you talk, and that's really the biggest difference between achievers and people that make difference in the world versus the people that don't. Uh, no excuse. You can have an idea, you can have ideas, they're a dime a dozen, but it's the action that makes a difference. And of course, that's what you've done. But I'm listening to you, and you said I'm just a normal Joe. Well, you might think that way. I would say, I would think otherwise. I would actually literally state this: you're a change maker, someone who is definitely making, putting a legacy in this world and making a difference. And I think it has to do also with your experiences. Maybe, again, I'm not a psychologist, but you came from a certain environment, and you've seen the value of things, and when the time was right for you, you decide to make something about it, and you saw a need. That is a real need. And frankly, statistics are like, alarming. Just listening, like, I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I don't think anyone watching or listening right now would have even thought this is a problem that is happening, at least not in the States. I mean, again, someone worldwide, they say, oh, this is something that we
Sure.
have. And by the way, if that is the case, this is a great example of maybe reaching out and seeing what can be done,
Yeah.
in parts of the world that, maybe just copycat, the concept and start, and like you said, any one of us can make a difference, starting with
Yeah.
ourselves. And if not, and maybe if we can change this, we can change the rest and have a contribution to other things. Your desire to work with a Boy Scout unit and kind of work with kids, give back. That was just the beginning, and it kind of evolved into a big mission. Now almost 50 states, 47 states, and beyond, 4 countries. And that's just the beginning. I know this is not the end of this. I know this is bigger than that, and now you have more people that are joining your work and your mission, and it's all fun and good, intentions because I'm sure the people that you are serving under this mission and this work, you're just bringing such a joy to them. And to your point, you just said something powerful earlier about it is not the bed, it's the feel of safety, the sanctuary. This is home. This is I am comfortable. I am worthy just like everybody else out there. I don't feel any less, than the rest of, especially kids. I mean, they go to school, there, sometimes they might feel ashamed. Those things can be actually hurting inside and maybe creating some, problems as they grow older. So you kind of
Right.
change that paradigm. You shifted the whole, concept there for them because now, and also I think another thing you added to them is the gratitude and the respect and the appreciation for that people can make a difference. You make
Yeah.
a difference in somebody today. I know that that's something that they take to heart, and it's
Yeah.
instilled in their mind. And I
Yeah.
know the same people will probably be better people in the future because it's funny. You mentioned something about a giver. Giving is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
We need to be givers, in this life, and it's okay. And giving doesn't mean in the millions. It just means you
No.
can give a smile and help and make somebody happy.
Right.
You can give a penny and make somebody happy. Sometimes you go to the store and someone is short a penny, and believe it or not, they're stuck. Like, here. I mean, I'm just giving an example of the worst level of denomination in finance, but it's whatever it is. It's $1 at a time. I mean, someone is short. I mean, I see these reels sometimes that this guy that walks behind a senior or something, and they just swipe their card, as they were, paying at the terminal. You know, it's heartwarming to see that people still care. There's a human factor here. I mean, it's
Well,
funny that, yeah, I'm talking to you right now, and we're an ultimatum between, the West and the East in terms of a war going on, and
right.
but yes, that's happening. And the war is not fun, but we're talking about humanity. We're talking about doing a good deed. We're talking about, providing a service, making a difference in people's lives and kids, lives. And again, you said thank you for, you were thanking me for allowing you to be here. I'm thanking you and for being here and actually
Oh,
doing the work and sharing this, because I know people out there, may, to your point, may have the money, may have stuff, they don't even know what to do. And, you're giving an idea to someone, and I guarantee you there's more people that will probably now take it from the shows that you are going on and kind of like
mm,
spreading this message to other people. They're like, hey, we could do this, and
right.
there are people that have the money and the capabilities. They just don't know, to your point, what to do. I mean, food drives are common, or at least more
Yeah,
common
yeah.
around, I mean, we have soup kitchens, we have, food pantries, uh, clothing drives, around the holidays, coat drives and stuff. But bed drives or bed, building, and you talked about you have a waiting list. I mean, that's another
Yeah.
thing. I mean, you're not even cracking the 30% mark of what's available out there in need. That's a problem. But again, you had to start somewhere, and you did. Now,
Well,
how many years have you been doing this for?
14 years. And this is important. Thank you for saying that because listen, you're not going to grab a basketball and go out and dunk the first time you touch a basketball. You're not, right? And I guess that's what I mean when I say, listen, I'm a nobody. I'm a farm kid from Idaho, right? And this world changing, this huge organization that we have now, you could probably look at it when you look at it now, sure, it's a monster. But I'm telling you, this started from some dude that got off the couch because he wanted to help his kids. That's it, right? It's the tiny things. Go out and dribble. Don't expect and look at, LeBron James who's dunking and thinking, well, I'm not going to do that. It's too overwhelming. Now, you may get there, you may not. But I tell you what won't happen is if you don't pick up the basketball.
Never
If
gonna
you
happen.
don't, if you don't follow even the smallest tiny moment, and that's the thing is, that's the practice I'm talking about. That's the working on the desire to act, right? You know, the desire to act doesn't have to be, I'm going to go save someone's life, dunking the basketball, right? No, the desire, the practice to that is dribbling and then layups and then free throws and hours and time after time and time. That's called practice, right? And then all of a sudden you can dunk, right? This is the practice of acting or working on your desire to act. Just following those tiny moments because you never know. You're right. You go, you pay for someone or someone's short a couple of bucks in the grocery line, you hand them $2 and they walk off, right? You just never know what that just did for them, but it did something for you too. And even though you might not recognize it, you just practiced on your desire to act, right? These little tiny practices that we do, eventually they become easier and addicting. And I mean, I'm sorry, if there's anything you can be addicted to in life that I think you should be, is your desire to serve. It's the greatest in the planet. What's funny is we bring these chapter presidents on, and they're all volunteer. These are crazy people. They're volunteer. They got the biggest hearts in the world. We tell people they only work half days, 12 hours a day. No, they're just
Really?
amazing people because they work so hard for no recognition other than seeing the joy of kids' faces when they get their beds for the first time. And it's addicting, right? These volunteers that spend hours working on this and thinking about it, you know, that that that's a built up practice of acting on tiny moments, you know. And so, yeah, the looking at the grand scheme of things is awesome. But really, the most important steps are acting on these tiny moments. That big scheme, if it even comes, um, who cares? Like that big scheme or that passion that you'll find, right, is only going to come when you act on things. If you don't, you'll never find it, and that's sad.
Action speaks louder than speak louder than words. Well, it's funny. What you stated in here is a message. Not on in this world alone. That what you're doing. It's like for everything else, right? Practice makes perfect. If you're not taking shots, you're missing 100% of them. You know, and you're right. You can't look at the end game or the big, where you are today. But when you started, it was just an idea. And to your point, I got out of the couch and tried to help, and so and one thing led to the other, and
Mhm.
and that's really the ripple effect before you know it. It's like, what do you call that? The snowball effect too. Like you start something and it grows to becoming a huge thing. We have an avalanche and an avalanche of good. This is a good avalanche here. But the
Yeah,
idea is that you started and it is contagious. Also when you're doing good deeds, and there are a lot of people out there. I mean, yeah, the world is mixed with some out evil vibes out there, but I think I still believe that there is more good than evil on this planet, and humans are full of capabilities in doing the right thing and doing more than the right thing and just really being great. And then you see us as humans getting more together in times of disasters and bad times, and we see that. Now, of course, there's always, again, I would say there's a small finite percentage that really make, no matter what, they're just who they are. I think the majority of us as humans out there, doesn't matter where we're from, doesn't matter what our denominations are, beliefs, we all come under humanity and the same, and we do have the same feelings and sentiments. And it is shared across. And you see that sometimes where people come together to help. And, I'm sure your chapters are in every state and most of the city, well, a lot of the cities. I'm sure people that are participating can be from all different, especially in the
right.
U.S. And we have a lot of variety of ethnicities and backgrounds and so on and so forth. So,
Yep.
and it's a great thing, and I think what you just scratched the surface. 14 years is a good making. It's a good time frame, but certainly this is beyond. And I love what
Yeah.
you said. These people are volunteers. So that's like you're like, oh, okay, well, you know, volunteering is a beautiful thing, and it's
Mhm.
rewarding. Listen, we
Mhm.
all have time to waste. We can just be binging movies. We can just be, couch potatoes and just not doing anything, just,
Right.
snacking, or we can be doing something that makes a difference. And the other part that is important of what you said, is that your kids are seeing what you're doing.
Right.
So you're creating a precedent to them, showing them what's the real making a difference means. And they are gonna be, taking that to heart because I mean that's the environment they're in. So they're learning good stuff. And I guarantee you, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure they're older now. They're probably are participating in more and
Mhm.
in a more capacity. And that's just probably the beginning of it. And I'm sure they're gonna keep that legacy going and the family, and this is it. So I'm really like, so excited about hearing about this. I mean, and
Good.
frankly, like I was shocked to even, when I kind we were connected, like I was curious about this whole thing. Like, is really is that need? Like I said, I mean, there's a need, there's poverty and stuff, but this is not something you think that it's going to help someone in the
Right.
same aspect that food or shelter or something. But yeah, you can have, I guess a cocoon and a cover over your head, but
Well,
sleeping
I'll tell
on
you
the
something.
floor is not fun.
I'll tell you something. This was and take this information however you want, right? But let me give you a statistic that was in my town. Well, close. There's a town called Rexburg, Idaho, which is close by, and a friend of mine started a chapter there. Well, it's not a big town. I mean, 30,000 people, not a big town, right? But he worked at the juvenile detention center there, right? And he worked with these young kids. Well, and he was a guard. Plus, I guess they sit in like a council circle and they talk about their problems, or I'm not sure what all they talk about, but he was one of these council type guards that would sit there and they would have a group chat. Well, when he started a chapter, he sat in one of these circles and he thought, you know what? He was curious. And there was about, oh, I don't know, 10, 20 kids there. And he said, he went around the room. He says, by show of hands, who in this circle, keep in mind, this is a juvenile detention center, right? You know where I'm going with this, right? Who in this circle grew up without a bed? You know what percentage raised their hand? 85. 85%. Now, whatever that means, you know, that's not a national statistic. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is it's a very interesting
Correlation.
piece of information. And that's why I said it's more than just a bed. When you think about waking up tired, grumpy, poor grades, right? Which means you're getting hounded. You don't make good friends. You don't have the comfort of your own home. You're subject to go to other places and find entertainment somewhere else. I mean, we all know what this means. This is not a hard thing to play out, right? And to see this play out. I just thought that was really interesting. 85% of the kids in there didn't have beds growing up. Now, I don't know what else can tell you how important that can be and how it's more than just a good night's sleep than that, but it's so true, right? And here's the challenge for everybody. Listen, now that you know that this is a problem, now that you know this thing actually exists and it's bad as we've just told you, right? Now the challenge is what are we going to do about it, right? Now you can donate, right? We would love that, right? You can show up. We would love that even more, right? To help out. You can find children with us, which is awesome, right? You can start your own chapters. But the simplest thing that you can do, sitting on your couch, playing on your phone, the very least I ask you to do is just share this message, share this podcast, share what you heard today with someone in the grocery store, with your neighbor, with your friends, and say, listen, trust me, it's a good conversation. And tell them, did you know that there's over 3% of the kids in this town, not the kids, excuse me, 3% of the total population are kids sleeping on the floor. I bet you they won't believe you. But that is how we're going to solve this problem. Is no one knows how to fix something if they don't know it's broken, right? And so share this. Do me a favor. Do those kids a favor. I'm not going to solve it for you. I can't. You know, Hurricane can't solve it for you. Those kids that are in your town, you're the only person that can solve it for them, right? And that's by sharing the message and sharing what's going on. So,
Well, look, that's a powerful message right there, man. And it's interesting. You when you get referred to your friend from the other town and the statistics you shared. I mean, everybody who's watching, listening. We understand that sometimes socioeconomics and some of the things that are lacking our upbringing can become, and there have been psychological studies and
sure.
studies that have been in real life that do show that trends, and statistically, there are more people are more inclined to maybe enter a world of not so good
Poor,
practices because
poor
of
choices.
those poor choices, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's funny because we just did a show that talks about mattresses and the importance of mattresses in your health and how that impacts you in real life. And so that's just in general about less normal person buying a mattress and the choice of a mattress, but imagine a lack of that. If a
Right.
mattress can affect your life and
Provides
how you
that.
make things. Imagine if you don't have one. So it's really like an amazing. Listen, we didn't plan this, time wise, but somehow I don't know. It always works out when these shows kind of like align the same way and the
Yeah.
same concept, or at least they kind of have some link in one way or the other. But I do appreciate your message out there, and frankly,
Mhm.
to your point, people listen. There's different levels of participation here, or at least making a difference or contribution. The least we could do is just spread in the message, and maybe someone with better means and better I guess time, whatever the case may be, they can actually contribute to this effort. And the need is there. And for, in the states, obviously here we're talking about the states, but I'm sure we have this in Canada. Down south, we have quite a bit of that, in Mexico and beyond. And I'm sure all around the world, there are places where people are barely having a place to sleep on, and
Right.
and again, mattress, if you have a mattress and roof and you have water and food, I mean, and clean clothing, that's a good beginning, obviously. And that's something sometimes we take for granted. Again,
Right.
we live in society today that people are boasting, what kind of car, what kind of dress code they have. I mean, they're spending thousands of dollars on a shirt and a pair of pants, whatever. And you have people that don't even have a basic, I don't know, 6 by 4, to just lay down and get a nice good night of sleep. It's a sad world sometimes when you think about it, but it's not so sad when you think that there are people such as yourself, Luke, and
Mm.
your crew that is that are making a difference right now. And by the way,
You
like I
know,
said, there's a, yeah, go ahead, Luke.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. I was just going to say because you made a good point that I always stress this, and I've heard it throughout the years, right? You look at the rich person that buys the $1,000 shirt or something like that, and it's hard to not get up frustrated and stuff like that, and it's a sad world that we live in. You know, I've learned, I'm teaching myself and coaching myself to listen, say, you know what? Yeah, it's a sad world for them. You know, I do this. I don't care what they do, right? That's a sad world for them if they're not recognizing all the good that they could do, right? But I can't change that. I can't do anything about that. So I'm going to work on the good that I can do, right? Because that's the benefit. My whole platform, my company that I do my speaking events with, it's called Humans Helping Humans because that's all we are, right? When you get down to the nitty gritty, to the common denominator, that's who we are. We're just humans helping humans, and we're going around this big blue dot together, right? And we can either decide to work and enjoy this together, or we can gripe and moan and not have the same great experience that we could have if we just did it together. And I think that's what hit me when I'm 35, going through this turmoil and realizing, number one, I need to stop thinking about myself, right? I need to, here are kids sleeping on the floor. Here's my kids that need to learn something, and there's millions of people that need and want some good service, some good way, like me, to give back. So let's build something together. And really, yeah, I'm the guy that started Sleeping on the Peace. Big whoop, right? What really has made this grow is hundreds of thousands of great people out there that have taken up the mantle, taken up the calling to step up and really make a difference in little humans' lives because they can't do it themselves, and that's where the real heroes are. And you know what? There's good in all of us. There is meaning, there is purpose, there is value in all of us, right? And when we recognize that and search for that, I think that's where we can start appreciating each other more. But anyways, I really enjoyed being on today. I mean, what a great conversation. You're an amazing dude for letting me come on and share my story, and I hope your audience catches, how much passion I have for this. I mean, it is my lifelong legacy, to share this, to get it out there, because and everybody, you do the same. If you found something that you discovered and no one else knew, and it's as terrible it is, you'd fight new tooth and nail to make sure everybody knows about it. And that's what I want to do. Just let people know about it and help me reach more kids out there, more people that can help, more families that are in need.
Well, look, your energy and passion is oozing, boosting, emanating from the screen. It's like, I'm overwhelmed right here. But and I mean it. I really meant
Oh,
that.
thank you.
It's you can tell when somebody is really like it's coming from the heart and it's passion
Mm,
because it is also your baby. You worked this,
mm,
and you saw it, grow to what it is today, and you just
mm,
wanted to keep going. And I do want to just add one little thing because your message is really powerful. But when I related to people that may be dressing up in expensive shirts, listen, I've met some of these folks that are actually very wealthy, well off, right? But they're actually some of the people I mentioned, that are doing some of the good work out there. There are some of these people that
yeah. Oh
actually
yeah.
recognize they have the ability to do it and they're doing it
Yeah.
with very selfish, I mean, with selfless, rather, I would say, level of humanity. They're just doing it, and because they can, and they are producing and doing stuff with no expectation from anyone,
Right.
because they do have that aspect. Now,
And,
again,
and
what I meant with the idea of someone like driving, a certain car or stuff. There's nothing wrong about living
nope.
life and enjoying it, but understanding there are people that are less fortunate, and maybe we need just to sometimes take a look at them, and realize that you
Right.
know no one selects their their parents. No one selects their where they are from. No one selects how they are bringing. I mean, you're born into an environment. It's the cards you dealt with. I mean, that's how it is. And we got to stop. The excuse like oh my God, my background sucks. Yes, I mean there are tendencies that are being documented because of such thing. But we have also other statistics that show like some people that came from the worst environment and they are the most brilliant and people
Yep.
that made a difference in this world. So it's like, but I think all of us, if you are fortunate, don't forget the unfortunate.
Right.
That's keep them in your prayer, keep them in your sight, keep them in your donations, keep them in your work. You're
Yeah.
volunteering. I mean, that's the least thing you do. Just volunteer. I mean, I'm telling you, these people came from all over, like hundreds
Yeah.
of volunteers every day that just came in, pack food, and actually walk and serve these people, and
Awesome.
literally, saying thank you to them for coming and giving us the opportunity to actually serve you and help you. And again, serving people is a beautiful thing. People think it's like it's beneath me, bro. You have no idea until you try,
I know.
and then life can't turn on any one of us at any
Yeah.
given point,
Oh
and
yeah.
and that's the other thing you have to realize. If it was supposed to be lasting, it would have lasted to the people before us, and there have been, you know, trillionaires and gazillionaires before in the history, and they're not here. And you know what? Sometimes the only thing you carry with you in the next, I guess, world is your deeds and your good deeds. I would say, So again, we got to think about all that from even the spiritual aspect of things. But really, you're right. It's making a difference, and seeing a
Right.
smile in somebody, it makes a difference.
Right.
Luke, thank you so much, man. This is fun, and thank you for really, reaching out and sharing your value, your story, and your work because there is a world out there that can actually add to what you're doing. And yes, the more the merrier. So yeah, folks,
Awesome.
that's about it. You've heard the man, you see the story, you know the work. Let's contribute to it, and we're gonna push this out to the world, and hopefully we can do some more, addition to what you're doing. Luke, thank you so much for being with us
Thank,
today.
thanks, Hurricane.
You're welcome. All right, that's it. Yeah, it's the end, the show today, folks, and I hope you had fun. And again, take it for what it's worth. I'm Hurricane H. We'll be talking soon. New day, new strong topic.